Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and I want to talk a little bit about the 2025 NFL Draft because the NFL Combine is this week, and we're going to be looking at 5 prospects at linebacker, defensive tackle, and edge at the Combine. The reason why I am just grouping those positions together is because the defensive linemen and the linebackers, they're going to speak to the media on Wednesday, February 26th. Defensive linemen and linebackers, they're going to work out together Thursday, February 27th. If you find yourself looking for NFL Combine content every single day, make sure you're subscribed because we're not only pumping out Combine stuff, we're also going to be giving you a lot of player interviews, coaches interviews, John Spytek, Pete Carroll interview. It's already on the channel, the full thing. We're also going to be talking about players that the Raiders could target in the draft. And some of you might be wondering, Mitch, are you also going to talk about all of the other players and all the other positions at the Combine? I am going to talk about it, but I'm going to do it right before those players test and right before those players are getting ready to go out there. So first, linebackers and defensive linemen. But the way that we're going to do this is we're going to start at the linebacker position, then we're going to talk about some edges, and then we're going to talk about some defensive tackles. I am going to go through and I'm going to show you every single prospect for the NFL Combine at all 3 of those positions here. I will tell you this, though. We will go through it quickly. So in total, 29 total linebackers at the Combine. I'll also tell you this. Many of these linebackers, I think you could also consider as edges, but because certain players that I might consider an edge is going to be working with the linebacker group, they're going to be in the linebacker group. So I'm going to focus on 5 linebackers that I like for the silver and black. The players that you're going to see, we can run through these quickly, and this is just the 29 names that are going to be testing at the linebacker position at the NFL Combine on Thursday, February 27th. And, you're going to get schools from top to bottom, a lot of different types of prospects. One school that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on is Ohio State, just based on what Pete Carroll had to say at the Combine on Tuesday, because Ohio State is going to have a lot of players. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start at the top, and I'm just going to tell you certain guys that I got my eye on. First name, Jalen Walker. I had Jalen Walker as a top 5 overall prospect for the Las Vegas Raiders, and some of you might go, why the hell would you have a linebacker ranked that high? I don't actually view him as a linebacker. I view him as a pure edge. He did play outside linebacker in college, but I'm telling you, he is an elite edge prospect. Long frame with great burst and that change of direction speed. You put him next to a Max Crosby, good luck trying to slow that down. Also, it's that versatility. You can use him as a coverage guy on the tight end position, which not a lot of people think that he's going to be able to do at the level that he did for the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm somebody that likes versatility, and I'm like somebody that wants to be able to use players in a lot of different ways. If you want to be able to put Jalen Walker hand in the dirt, get north and south, go out and get to the quarterback, you're going to be able to do that. He had 6.5 sacks this past season with the Bulldogs. But also, if you need to occasionally drop a player back into coverage, you can do that with Walker. If it was up to me, 9 times out of 10, Walker's going out and getting the quarterback. That other one, though, I don't mind if they're going to have to drop him back. He can do it. He's that good. Let's go to another player. It's Jihaad Campbell, who I believe is the best linebacker. When I think of linebacker, I think of Jihaad Campbell, and this is somebody that has been on the Raiders' radar for quite some time. His sideline-to-sideline speed, I think, is the best in this class, and it's a term that I use all the time for anybody that watches this show, so you know how much I like sideline-to-sideline linebackers. He led Alabama in tackles for loss, sacks, and forced fumbles in 2024. I mean, when you got a linebacker that's just got tape on his fingers and has all those type of numbers, that dude just loves football, and he's just always around the ball. His instincts, I do think, need to improve a little bit, but he's a player that you just got to be able to love. At 6'3", 244 pounds, 119 tackles, 5 sacks, Alabama took a step back. But you know who didn't? Jihaad Campbell. And Jihaad Campbell is, I'm telling you, the real deal at the linebacker position. Though, I was hoping you might be able to get him at pick 37. I think he's going to be a round 1 pick. Let's go to another player here to watch at the Combine from the linebacker position. And this is not an easy name for me. Carson Schweisinger. And Schweisinger is one of these linebackers that I'm just going to say, when you look at him, you might go, oh, man, he don't really look like an NFL linebacker. but I would mention him the same way that I kind of mentioned, somebody along the lines of a Tommy Eichenberg, where always seems to be around the football. And it's those insane instincts, which is why I like Carson. Now, I'll tell you this. If his testing is really bad, maybe it hurts his draft stock overall, but he averaged 7.5 solo tackles per game this past year for UCLA. That's the most in college football FBS since 2020. He is undersized, but he plays with a lot of heart. And this is going to be a dude that on tape you can see loves football. He's got an unbelievable motor, but just some of this underwear Olympics, which is sometimes the way that the NFL Combine is referred to, is just one of these players that, he's too small to play in the league. Turn on the tape, because when you turn on the tape, he's a top 50 overall prospect, I think. And this could be a player where if the Raiders are looking to draft a linebacker in round 2, maybe he's there at pick 68. Carson Schweisinger is definitely a name to keep in mind. But again, I want to see the testing. Let's go to another linebacker here. It's going to be Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. This is more of a player that I could see the Raiders targeting in the 3rd round, maybe at 107 if he falls a little bit. But he is a true run stopper in the middle. And I'm hoping that they bring back Robert Spillane. But his tape wasn't great when he had to drop back into coverage. I'm not going to lie to you. But if you're just looking for a linebacker that shoots a gap, when he wraps you up, you're going to go down. But then also, worst case scenario, and I get it, you're not drafting a linebacker this early to be a special teams player, but the way he hits guys is the way that I used to hit guys on Madden when I was a kid, when I first learned what the hit stick was. The hit stick was something you're trying to take the cleats off of a player, and that's what Stutzman does. And I think that type of mentality does work really well on special teams. And again, maybe he's a special teamer locked in also with a little bit more of linebacker help, but at 6'4", 241, if you're looking for a hard-hitting linebacker in the middle of the field, Danny Stutzman is somebody that I can't wait to see what he does at the NFL Combine. Let's go to the final name here. Hate him in the NBA, but Chris Paul Jr. is a fun linebacker prospect out of Mississippi. Another undersized player, but brings you that high energy that you're looking for in a linebacker. Somebody asked me before, Mitch, what players could you see the Raiders, trying to recreate from their days over with the Legion of Boom? And I've heard a lot of Earl Thomas. I've heard a lot of a player, even along the lines of Cam Chancellor. Chris Paul, I don't know who he compares to, but his versatility is going to be very sought out by certain teams. There's going to be certain teams that just say no to him because he's only 6'1", 235 pounds. But if this is a player that always seems to be around the ball, you could tell that he's flying around the football field because when you watch his tape, his jersey is dirty all the time. He looks like that little kid that's just sliding into second base, or you're like, honey, you didn't even play today. And he was like, hey, but I had a great time. And he got a bunch of oranges while he did it. Chris Paul Jr., I do think is a top 100 overall prospect, but I could see him sliding a little bit to the undersizedness. You know who he reminds me of? This is a name that some of the OG Raiders Report watchers will remember. Ivan Pace Jr. And Ivan Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati was somebody that went undrafted, but ended up being a reliable linebacker on the Minnesota Vikings. Chris Paul Jr. is somebody that I like. A lot of electricness to him, can drop back into coverage, but the undersize does scare me a little bit. He's got to test really well, though, to draft high. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to name a linebacker that you're excited to watch at the NFL Combine. It can be any linebacker, and obviously, I left off 23 other names that you could look at a little bit more in depth. But with 29 players going to the Combine at the linebacker position, those are 5 that I just want you to check out. Let's now go to the edge position here. And edge is obviously going to have a lot of eyes on it because, Kayvon Chasen's a free agent. Malcolm Kuntz is a free agent at the time that I'm making this video. But 32 total edge prospects at the Combine. And these players are going to be combined with some of the defensive tackles on top of that. The edges and DTs working out together. I love looking at some of the speed, some of the burst. A 3-cone drill gets me going for some of these edges. I'm not going to lie to you. So what I'll do here is I'll end up breaking down my top 5 edges from top to bottom. I will also say the edges that you're about to see, again, some are going to be listed as just, defensive ends, but I rank edge defensive ends as the same thing in the NFL draft process. Overall, though, a lot of different names to consider here. The Raiders are going to invest in being able to get after the quarterback. It's something John Spytek believes in. It's something that I have really, pounded the table for, because I want the Raiders to be able to go out and get after the quarterback in every way, shape, or possible. So I will say that some of these players, I'm not going to take too much of a deep dive in, because if you want to check out some of the top prospects that I want the Raiders to target from an edge or defensive line perspective, I do already have a video actually out on that topic. So if you want to go check out some of the top prospects, that video is already on the channel, and it's like the top players in the trenches after the Super Bowl. We are, though, going to go through, and I'm just going to give you 5 names of players that I really want to see how they do at the Combine. The first name is Shemar Stewart from Texas A&M. Shemar Stewart is a project, and project sometimes is a term that scares a lot of people away. But I was so confident that K'Lavon Chaisson would turn into a good player because of Rob Leonard and Patrick Graham. And I'm not saying that I would take him at 6, but Stewart could be somebody that does fall in the draft because his production, it doesn't match what you see on tape. This is a player that should be getting almost, 8, 9, 10 sacks a year, and he had only 1.5, and that was the most he had in college. But 39 pressures in 2024. So for you to get 39 pressures and only 1.5 sacks, in my mind, that's like if an NFL quarterback threw for 5,000 yards and only 10 touchdowns, right? You're like, that just doesn't make sense. He is a sprinter. He's able to get off the football, and at 6'6", 290, there's a lot to be able to work with right there. And the build overall kind of reminds me, I'm just going to throw it out there, of somebody who's big, long, and lanky, like an Arden Key. Maybe even somebody who's, again, he's about 50 pounds heavier than Arden Key. But even a guy like K'Lavon Chaisson, longer and lankier, a little bit bigger too, about 50 pounds on him. Shemar Stewart, he's going to test really well, and I think you're going to see some of that draft stock go up. Let's go to another player here. It's Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. Stewart is all athletic, and yet he's going to test incredible at the Combine. I don't know if Sawyer's going to test well, and this is going to be one of those where, again, you got to consider do I want a great football player, or do I want somebody that shows up at the Combine? Because Sawyer might struggle in terms of some of the numbers that he puts up. But he's a team captain that he got better every single flipping year. And that nonstop motor, his strength, is why there are going to be teams that fall in love with him. I'll admit, when you look at all these other athletes at the edge position, he's not a great athlete at edge. But it's that motor, it's that will, it's just that, I'm going to throw out the term like Max Crosby kind of in him, of dude just loves football. And if you put Jack Sawyer in a room with Mad Max, Sawyer's the type of guy that he hears Max is showing up to the gym at 6 a.m., Sawyer's going to be there at 5:50 waiting for him there with a little bit of Slate coffee in his hands. I'm telling you right now, Sawyer, if he doesn't have a great Combine, don't freak out. Dude's a great football player. Next player coming up here at edge, though, that I want to watch at the Combine. Well, you know what? Before I get into this player, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor here, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there. Get $50 when you play 5. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks is the best place to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big-time payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So whether you want to go with a long-term season play here on PrizePicks, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not big into the whole baseball realm, but once PrizePicks puts them out for football, I'm going to be picking more, and I'm going to be picking less on some Raiders season longs. That I know for a fact. Basketball season, though, if you're trying to watch a sporting event, you take $5, you have an opportunity to win a little bit of money. but you're going to be entertained that entire time you're sitting down watching that event. Prize Picks, run your game. Shout out to them for sponsoring today's show. Let's keep it moving here. Some of the top edges that I want to watch at the Combine. Another name, Landon Jackson from Arkansas. This is a player that I don't care what anybody says. When I watch him, if you were to put him in a bright green jersey, it would look a lot like Max Crosby out of Eastern Michigan. Now, Crosby had way more bend than what Jackson has right now, but it's that long, lanky, and just like that Gumby style of mentality. This dude was a stud at the Senior Bowl. When I see a player at the Senior Bowl do as well as what Jackson did, it does. It intrigues me, and I want to see if that also translates to what I've seen on tape. I like my tape from him. SEC, gotta love it. But then on top of that, is it also good from the Combine standpoint? But that build, he's 6'7", he's 280, he's long, he's lanky, and I'm telling you, he has that Max Crosby type of build. Good motor on him. Again, doesn't have the bend, but if you were to put Jackson, and if you were able to get him probably, I don't think he's going to be available to you at pick 68. He's probably going to be more of a round 2 pick, but Jackson is somebody that I'm hoping tests well, and who knows, could find himself in a silver and black uniform. Next name coming up here is an edge from UCLA. We're just going to call him Olu, and I'll tell you this, there's no player that I almost want the Raiders to draft more that also scares the absolute bejesus out of me in terms of saying a name right or wrong. And I only say that because if you like a project player, this kid's going to be something special. Because he played middle linebacker for his first 3 years at UCLA. And he also does have a little bit of a connection, with Chip Kelly, which is something that we got to keep in mind. But he really impressed me at the Senior Bowl. And even though he's only been playing edge for 1 year, he's still unbelievably raw. But it's like that raw athletic ability, which it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Malcolm Kuntz, where you saw Malcolm Kuntz coming out of Buffalo, and you could tell this kid was an athletic freak. Able to get out from his, step, gets after the quarterback quick, pins his ears back. He does a lot of that good stuff. Can still drop back, like some of these other versatile linebackers can. But the way that he's going to get it done in the NFL is being a pure edge rusher. And if I was a young kid, I would love the opportunity to go play with Rob Leonard and Patrick Graham. Let's go to another player that I think it's really important to watch at the Combine. And I will say this also, Olu, probably going to be there in round 3, might even be there in round 4. For Savion Jones, somebody else who I thought did really well at the Senior Bowl, and he showed that he can beat offensive guards and offensive tackles on tape. Like, I saw him beat a lot of OTs at LSU. At the Senior Bowl, one of the things that I loved was his ability, and it was almost like he was attacking offensive guards left and right. Right now, he wins with just raw moves. He could be a great project for Rob Leonard at the defensive end position, but at 6'6", 280, 40 tackles last season for the Tigers, this is going to be somebody who, if you can get him at pick like 107 in round 4, you're loving that value there. I don't think that he's going to get taken in the top, 3 rounds. Personally, I don't know if he's going to be a top 3 round type of player, but if you're able to get this guy on day 3, you'll love the value there in Savion Jones. So name an edge you're excited to watch at the NFL Combine. If you haven't been able to tell, we got a lot more names that we're going to have to dive into. And coming up next here on the show, we're going to be looking at some defensive tackles. And a lot of defensive tackles in this group as well. I don't remember the exact number from start to finish. I actually think it was, 40? I think it's like 41 overall defensive tackles. So there are a lot of names to go through. So here's what we're going to do again. I'll just give you my top 5 players, not top 5, just 5 players that I want you to look at. And they're not in any particular order right here. This is more of just I want you to be able to see every single name from every single school that is going to be at the Combine testing as a defensive tackle. Some of these players I'm sure you've already heard me talk about in NFL mock drafts, and more of these players I'm going to be able to bring in and do more deep dives on in the future, which is why I hope that you subscribe here to the Raiders Report for even more content. But at the end of the day, I have to be able to give you just some names to sit down and to watch. 41 total defensive tackle prospects, though, for the NFL Combine. The first name, though, that I really want to look at, Mason Graham. And Mason Graham is a prospect that I actually don't know how people don't love the game that they see in Graham. He's somebody that's able to do a lot of different things for your defensive line, and he's maybe not somebody that's going to rack up the stat sheet, but the fact that this could be the player that the Raiders go with at number 6, I got to watch and I got to be intrigued for. His wrestling background is something that you see on tape, and when you're a wrestler in high school, when you're a wrestler in general, you're just kind of able to win in those close-range situations, and that's how Mason Graham wins. He sheds blocks, he takes on double teams, and he's got an outstanding motor. I mean, you can't slow him down. He's given 110% every single time he goes out there, which is going to open things up for Max Crosby. It's going to open up things for a Christian Wilkins. And if you want Crosby to get 20 sacks, you should want the Raiders to draft Mason Graham. Let's go to another name here. It's Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. And I mean this might be one of my favorite overall defensive tackle prospects in this entire year's class, because on tape, I actually think Harmon's tape is better than Mason Graham's tape. His lateral quickness, his ability to win with his strong hands it almost reminds me of like a boxer. Like, I actually wonder if Derek Harmon boxes because of how hard he hits people. And I mean, when he hits somebody, you're almost like, Jesus Christ, Derek, you're going to take the wind right out of his chest. But like, that's what he does, and he just is able to move people around. He's dominant in the run game. He's able to go out and get after the quarterback at 6'5", 320 pounds. I do wonder, and I think Mason Graham is this year's top defensive tackle. If Harmon goes out and crushes it, like I think he might at the Combine, I wonder if Harmon starts getting some of this top 15, top 10 type of love. I know DT is really, really deep, but Derek Harmon is an absolute freaking specimen. And he was able to put on some weight. Really, really fun player, though, overall. Let's go to the next name here on the Raiders Report at defensive tackle. And I like Harmon a lot. I like Mason Graham a lot. Both players definitely solid players. But both Harmon and Graham, you're going to have to take in the first round, which Graham, I get at 6. You know, Harmon, if the Raiders were to trade back, could be a little bit more availability there. He's not going to be available, though, at pick 37. Let's go to somebody, though, that I would love for the Raiders to be able to get at pick 68. It's TJ Sanders from South Carolina. And South Carolina has been able to develop some of these good prospects. I know, that one's on me. TJ Sanders, though, was somebody that I liked a lot at the Senior Bowl and was just one of these dudes that showed up what you saw on tape, and then it also translated at the Senior Bowl. He's been playing football, though, for only 5 years, so there's still a lot to learn, and you can tell that there's a lot to learn there. But this is somebody else who just always seems to be in the right spot at the right time. Very powerful player on the interior who's going to help you win in the trenches. Like, he's one of these dudes that when you hit him, he doesn't move. A lot of times when you talk about defensive tackles, you talk about the word anchor. And Sanders, despite not being the biggest player on the field, just seems to be able to put his cleats in the dirt and really just get in and be a solid anchor on the defensive line, which, you know, if it's 3rd down and 1, TJ Sanders is going to be there. 4th down and 1, TJ Sanders is going to be there. And at 6'4", 290, he plays way bigger. Like, when I watch TJ Sanders play at 6'4", 290, he almost plays bigger and stronger than a player that's way bigger than him that we're about to talk about coming up here in just a few moments from now. Let's go to another player from a small school. It's Darius Alexander from Toledo. And I can remember last year, I did a mock draft where I had Quinyon Mitchell in the 3rd round. I remember being like, this is never going to happen, but he's a small school, and I love the talent. Don't just be fooled by small school Toledo. Darius Alexander is a baller, and he shined at the Senior Bowl, which really, I think, boosted his stock. The great size, the bend. Somebody who's this big and at a small school, I actually wonder at times like how players like Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Alexander end up at a school like Toledo, because his versatility at defensive tackle, and he's got some edge to him. And I know it's weird at 6'4", 310 pounds, but he's somebody where, like, if you want to copycat the Chiefs, and if you want to use your defensive tackle kind of the way Kansas City does with Chris Jones, where they're able to line him up, you know, right on the nose, or they're able to line him up in the gap, or able to line him up out there at edge, Darius Alexander, you could tell, has some of that experience in his past, and he gives you a lot of fun versatility next to Christian Wilkins. I can't wait to see how this guy tests. And then this is the alien, the monster of all monsters. This dude doesn't look like a normal human being because normal human beings aren't this size. It's Deone Walker. And when Deone Walker steps onto the combine, people are going to notice because you're not able to move and you're not able to be an athlete at this size. His strength, it's unbelievable. His feet, I love his footwork. And what gets me, though, is his inconsistent tape. Because he was much better at Kentucky, I thought, when I watched the tape on him in 2023 compared to the tape that I saw on him in 2024. Where 2024, he kind of reminded me of a guy that got paid and then just didn't even care. I mean, there were some people that talked about Deone Walker being a top 10 pick, a round 1 pick at the beginning of 2024. The only reason why I'm bringing him up here is because I believe in Rob Leonard and I believe in Patrick Graham, which is something that I've said probably a million times on this show already. But, that's the type of coaching staff that Deone Walker needs. Because if you're going to put Walker on any organization, he's going to struggle if you don't have good coaches around him. I don't want to use the word lazy, but when you have as much to work with as what Walker does, and the inconsistencies in his tape, because when Walker shows up in some tape, you're like, this guy might be one of the better defensive tackles I've seen. And then you see him go up against somebody who's got, 100 pounds less than him, and he gets pushed around a little bit. Walker is a he's a great athlete for his size. And I think because he's such a good athlete, there's going to be a lot of people that boost his draft stock up. If he's going in round 2, way too early for me. Deone Walker in end of round 3, round 4, because he is still such a project. But I mean this, you got to watch him because at that size, he's going to be fun to watch. So name a defensive tackle that you're excited to see at the NFL Combine. Let me know down below. And at this point, we should have a linebacker, an edge, and a defensive tackle that you're all going to be willing to watch because I know this. A lot of different prospects, a lot of different information, and once the prospects go out there and they do their thing, I promise you more videos are going to be coming. So again, I'm doing this show today because these players are going to be testing on their on-field workouts on the 27th. The next video that I do like this is going to be around the DBs and tight ends. So we're going to be breaking down the safeties. We're going to be breaking down the tight end group. We're going to be breaking down the cornerback group. So if you want more videos around that, the QB video I've already done. That's already out on the channel. I put that out on Tuesday morning. So then we're going to do one that's wide receivers and running backs. And then I'm going to do one that's just only offensive guards and offensive tackles. So if you want to check out the quarterback video that I've already made, here is the thumbnail. This video is down in the comments. It's down in the description of today's show. I can't wait for the NFL Combine. And there's a lot of players that you need to watch. But I want you to check out certain names from this video and also from that video.